go to a CRO event somewhere in Europe, you always see heaps of Dutch people. One of our stereotypes is that we are cheap, which means we don't know to spend money. So, yeah, I know. But we don't really like to spend money in a way. So how can you make sure that you get more return on investment on the same amount of investment? Well, CRO is one of the things. You have to think like an end user and not just think like one of the silos that we normally see is like, okay, I'm email, I'm website, I'm PPC, I'm paid media, which is great, but the customer doesn't think, oh, now I'm at the PPC unit, now I'm at the website department. No, they just see one company. If I go to the supermarket and I stand in line in front of the register and I walk away, people would look at me funny. But online, 60% of the people do that. Sometimes people only focus on an open rate or metrics that are really good, but they don't always contribute to the end goal. The end goal for a company, a lot of times, is just making sure you're profitable. A lot of times when we have new clients, they say, well, we have some experiments, can you run them for us? Yeah, we can, that's fine. But I rather want to know, okay, what's your business goal? Who are your clients? What are you trying to solve? And from there on, we can find a suited way to do that.
Welcome to the first episode of the CRO Hour series by VWO Podcast. Get ready for some fun, insightful conversations about experimentation, user research, and the huge impact that CRO can have in your business. Before we speak to our guest, here's a very quick overview of who we are and what we do. VWO is a leading experience optimization platform that you can use to manage your experimentation program and deliver personalized experiences. One of our most popular offerings is VWO Insights, a platform to analyze user journeys and identify conversion roadblocks. Take a free trial with VWO today and optimize experiences across all your digital platforms. Now, let's jump right into this conversation.
We are very excited to have Mark Verbeek here with us, and he is currently serving as the CRO Director at Dentsu in Amsterdam. With over 10 years in growth marketing, Mark excels at managing complex projects and driving results through rapid experimentation. He has worked extensively across industries such as finance, e-commerce, digital marketing, and specifically using data-driven strategies to ensure that we have impressive results. And Mark is all about continuous improvement, and we cannot wait for him to share his journey and insights. Welcome, Mark.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me here. I'm really happy to just talk about CRO for a time. So, let's get started, I'll say.
Crazy. So how has your week been? Any exciting projects?
Yeah, definitely. It's been a couple of weeks, so we're looking at onboarding some new clients, and right now we see that of course we're in an agency world, so a lot of our clients are now working on the budget. So for us, it's also very important to be top of mind and knowing, okay, what are the big challenges that our customers have, and how could we support them from a CRO perspective, but not only as a CRO specialist, but also look at the broader channels that they use with us and see how we can improve our business and their business, of course.
So what do you love most about working in the CRO industry?
I think it started when I was already like small boy. Now I'm a bit bigger, but what I used to have is like I always try to make stuff better or more efficient, to the extent that I would say, well, how can I open the door as easy as possible with as least movements as possible. So I've always tried to make stuff better, and from there out, I think I really, really like the part of the CRO that we can always say, okay, it's really nice it's happening here, but I think we can do it better if we understand how it works and how we can optimize this. And also share that knowledge, because that's, I think, really one of the most important things that a lot of times companies forget, is that they learn something, which is great, but they don't tell their colleagues, for example.
I completely agree with you. I face the same issues. I even face the same issues while working with clients in their own projects. Like they forget to share their learnings with other departments, which could actually help them with their growth. So as Dentsu works extensively on media companies, how do you see them embrace CRO for a long-term result?
Yeah, that's it's a good question because I think that's when I started at Dentsu, which is about 18 months ago. I see it as one of the big challenges that a lot of our clients spend large amounts of money on the media, but they only look at, okay, how do we get people from email or from a display ad onto the website? But when they come to the website, they almost see it like a different part of the business. So they don't, like, the campaigns can be great, but then you end up on the website and then it's like, okay, yeah, so what's happening here? The story that I'm now trying to tell to more of my colleagues and of course more of our clients as well is like, it used to be like a brick and mortar store that when you came in and it was a small shop, you knew, okay, the owner put out the advert, you came in, he knew that you talked about the advert, he knew which product you were talking about, and he would help you that way. But right now we see we see a lot of people land on a website or store, and they just, okay, well, great, you're landing on a homepage. There's no context, there's no tone of voice that resonated anyway with the advert of the media campaign that we had. So I think that making that connection from media channels to a website and eventually to a sale, I think is very important. So we're trying to make that like one of the foundations of a media campaign instead of a extra of it on it.
So more in line or more in lines with creating relevance when they come back on the website, see, so that they get what they saw and researched essentially.
Yeah, definitely. I always feel like when what I try to do is to create the experience that you would have in a normal shop. So let's say I bought some shoes. Now I come back to the shop. They remember me and say, "Well, Mark, how did you like your shoes? Oh no, you work out a lot, so maybe you want some gym shoes. Well, that's great. That's a great experience." And I'm trying to recreate that experience online as well. So then you need to make sure that your data is reliable. Right now, back in the days, it didn't really matter, but now people need to accept the cookies. Otherwise, you're a stranger anyway. So there's a lot of new aspects that make this job just really, really interesting as well.
So, with this given change towards the omni-channel experiences, how are you applying the CRO strategies across different media channels, ensuring that you have diverse goals as well?
What we normally do is we start with a KPI framework session to say, okay, what are the main company goals, and how can we split that to the different levels within the client teams. So could be PPC, could be paid media, could also just be the shop owners, sometimes as we call them. And we try to say, okay, how can we align all of those goals to set the foundation so everybody looks at the same metrics, which is really important. Because sometimes people only focus on an open rate or a certain reach or just metrics that are really good, but they don't they don't always contribute to the end goal. And the end goal for a company a lot of times is just being sure you're profitable. So once we set that, then we look at, okay, when we go all the way down to the funnel, how does that work? Because the best way to improve your business is to look at, okay, the people that are already in your funnel, already trying to buy a product, why do they leave? Because if I go to the supermarket and I stand in line in front of the register and I walk away, people would look at me funny. But online, 60% of the people do that. So just by also giving these examples to marketeers, I'm trying to make them more aware of sometimes how strange stuff is. And also how we can improve it. Because if we make sure that not 60% of the people leave at the checkout, but only 40%, that's just basically it's free money for them because they don't have to spend any extra budget. Those people were already there. So you're just making sure that the people that already are in your website, are in your shop, if we convert them better, then it gives a bigger ROI for almost all of the channels as well. So starting from the basics and then moving all the way up to higher in the funnel.
So I'm very curious now if you could maybe share an example of an experiment which was particularly successful based on your definition, and what are the key factors that you would say that contributed to the success of that experiment?
Yeah, one of the experiments that we did, and it was for an e-commerce company. they made a lot of use of discount codes, so coupon codes. And the rule of thumb is the quicker you are from the product detail page to a checkout, the better it is, because less steps means better conversion. So they did that, fine. But they did see that overall the drop-off, when I started working there, the drop-off in the checkout was pretty big. So from the checkout, I saw that people went from filling in their details, so address, payment methods. They went back to the cart page because it skipped the cart page because they said, well, less steps is better. But what we realized is that because they skipped the cart page, they skipped the page that they could fill in their coupon codes. And everybody was working with coupon codes. So we said, well, maybe we should just change that. So we did an A/B test. The original, of course, sent them all the way through the checkout. And the other one said, well, let's add a step. Make sure you put that coupon code in first because people want that. And we saw, I think it was 900K in the first couple of months already on added revenue. Just by thinking like a customer instead of, oh, we have to do it as quickly as possible, or this is a rule of thumb and we have to follow it.
That is such a cool example. I mean, I think this is a very good lesson for all our listeners as well, that just don't blindly copy paste, best practices or, rule of thumbs. You need to learn and understand what your customers are trying to tell you. So I'm sure you also agree that experimentation goes beyond A/B testing, and this is something that I scream at all of my clients. Uh, according to you, what kind of tests or the elements that fit into user research to create an overall strategy for experimentation?
Yeah, so I completely agree with you because a lot of times when we have like new clients, they say, well, we have some experiments. Can you run them for us? Yeah, we can. That's fine. But I rather want to know, okay, what's your business goal? Who are your clients? What are you trying to solve? And from there on, we can find a suited way to do that. It doesn't always have to be experimenting. For example, we have in our office in Amsterdam, we have they call it an attention lab. So what you do is we do EEG research, and we measure the emotions of the users while they see funnels, while they see commercials. So we can add EEG data. So is somebody frustrated? Are they paying a lot of attention? Are they losing focus? And then with eye tracking, we can see, okay, where are they clicking on, what's happening there, and we interview them afterwards. So from there out, we know the why people are dropping off in a funnel, or why they are not communicating with the tooling as wanted.
That is so cool. And I really like the title as well, Attention Lab, that gives it more prominence on be attentive to your customers. That's really cool.
I think it's a really big part of our overall strategy. It's not only, look, it's really nice that you see us, but do we get your attention? Does it resonate? Because I think that's really important nowadays, because the amount of ads people see, the amount of impressions that they have, if I open my phone, the amount of messages and pop-ups that come up, you need to grab that attention and make sure that you're relevant for that user at that time.
And based on your experience, what are the trends in consumer behavior that shapes the CRO strategies, and how do you anticipate that these trends will evolve in the future?
Yeah, there are a couple of things, of course, that are really interesting. One of them is that cookie consent is still a really big thing. Right now, of course, we're moving to more of a cookieless world, so first-party data is really important. And it's important for a couple of reasons. We see with a lot of clients that want to do personalization, and they've got the tooling there. They hire personalization experts, but in the end, they got a really small cookie bar that everybody ignores. And when you ignore a cookie, they don't give consent, so you don't end up in the CDP. Yeah, so that's a big part, making sure that the data that you have is reliable and uses also consent. So that's a really big part of it. The other one is, of course, still mobile. It was back when I started 10 years ago, mobile was still, of course, was also the trend, but it's still there. But we do see that a lot of content isn't adjusted for mobile. So it's still a lot of long read forms. I work for a publisher, and they have videos, but they don't use subtitles. So sometimes when you're trying to watch videos, you're sitting in the metro or you're sitting in the train. You don't want people to hear you because you don't have your headphones in. Subtitles work. So just make this adjusting to the user and the environment the user might be in. I think this is really important for the upcoming years as well.
That's really smart. And I think we will cater to a larger set of audience. For example, people who can't hear or people who can't understand. There are so many closed captions now that come with your regional language translation. So that's really cool. I mean, I've never thought about it that way.
Yeah, yeah, and it's now even more relevant. I think in June 2025, in the EU, we have the Digital Accessibility Act coming up. So that means that websites need to be digitally accessible for people who are maybe colorblind or other disabilities. So a lot of times websites look really, really nice, unless you have a visual disability or hearing disability. So it's really good that we are now more aware about, okay, it's not just us, but it's also people who can't really read everything. Make sure that your main content is readable. And not only from a law perspective, because okay, it's legislation. I sometimes also say to clients, well, 7% of the users on the internet have a certain disabilities. If you miss those, you're also missing as part of the revenue, because they just go to a site that they can read.
That's really cool. I mean, I was interviewing one of my clients, and they deal with teachers and students. And we recently did a test where can we make the font dyslexic friendly, because the teachers gave us feedback saying that most of their students in the US are dyslexic. So this is a really good insight, and I can maybe do further research on fonts that are dyslexic friendly.
Yeah, yeah,
So
definitely.
you mentioned that onboarding is always like a hassle usually. So what are the biggest challenges that you usually have when you onboard new clients and identifying their specific CRO needs?
I think one of the biggest challenges is to manage the expectations, because onboarding sometimes takes a while, especially if they don't have any tooling in place. So we try to, because we have got a partnership with VWO, we try to offer VWO for them just to make the life easier. But we see that that's always one of the bottlenecks. And from there out, it's the other expectation management, and basically CRO is also expectation management, because if you get what you expect, you won't be disappointed. If you're not disappointed, you probably won't leave. But data is extremely important, and sometimes we forget it that the data structure of a lot of companies, even enterprises, isn't solid. So I try to compare it. So when I talk to clients, I always compare it to the foundation of a house. So that if you have a beautiful house, but your foundation is horrible, yeah, then you can't trust it. So will I fall through the floor? When will the wall fall over? But we see it with a lot of clients now that their attribution data isn't correct. We see that they can't trust their analytics data. So a lot of times what we see is, okay, we need to fix the tool. We need to make sure the data is reliable. And from there out, it's like a pyramid. Then you can build further onto it. And then you start, okay, what are your business goals? What experiments do you want to do? Depending on the maturity of the client, because we always have an assessment for where do you want to be in 2 to 3 years. We see that sometimes it's really hard for them to just get that vision for 2 to 3 years. So that's where we help them as well. So, okay, if you want to be more data driven, that's great. Well, let's start small. And I think starting small, especially for low mature clients, is really important, because you need to get the buy-in, and not only the buy-in from the client, but also from the client's manager. That's what we see a lot as well.
just touching upon CRO maturity, based on your experience, how would you describe the CRO maturity amongst all the businesses that you see in Netherlands?
I think overall the level is pretty high. It's also really funny if you go to a CRO event somewhere in Europe, you always see heaps of Dutch people. So it's really it's a big thing, and I do feel like because we are, maybe it's a bit stereotype, but we're Dutch. So one of our stereotypes is that we are cheap, which means we don't like to spend money. So, yeah, I know, but we don't really like to spend money in a way. So, how can you make sure that you get more return on investment on the same amount of investment? Well, CRO is one of the things. So, I think it's really a search for efficiency. And we see that some clients are really far ahead, so they do thousands of experiments a year. And other clients are just starting up and they do 2 to 3 experiments a year, maybe a couple per month. So, but we do see that some clients are really far, and some of them are just starting. But overall, the maturity is pretty high.
So, with that, do you also see them adopting or maybe leveraging AI to craft their experimentation strategies or even optimization strategies in general?
Yeah, definitely. I think I always compare AI to like a really smart graduate student because they know a lot, but you do have to check everything that they put out there. But what we use it a lot. So one of my colleagues, used to be a developer, now is a CRO specialist, which is a great combination, by the way. With one of our development team members, he built something that's called the CRO Buddy. So it helps create code for experiments. So it puts an overlay on a website, and then it writes the code in JavaScript for you. So in VWO, you have, of course, the visual editor, and this is a visual editor with an AI-powered developer behind it. So those are one of the things that we try to innovate with AI as well. Another example is that we use a lot of voice of the customer programs. Like I say, one of the ways of researching as well is really listening to your end user. The great thing about that is that sometimes we see with some CRO programs that clients, they have ideas, they have solutions, and they think, well, this will work, but they don't really have a problem. They think there's a problem, but by turning it around and saying, okay, we're going to listen to what what the end user says, maybe on Trustpilot, on Google reviews, on App Store reviews, and we analyze that data via a tool like GPT. So we can analyze it quite quickly. We can see, okay, what are the true pain points? How many people talk about this? And then we, of course, compare it to GA4, maybe some data from Hotjar or something like that. And then we can say, okay, this is a real problem. Let's get a solution for that. So we're trying to turn that around. And this is also one of the ways that we use AI.
It's actually a very smart thing. I'm going to steal that definitely.
Well, I would, because it does make your life easier.
Yes. What would you say are the 3 precautionary measures that you take to ensure your test results are reliable and accurate?
Yeah. Well, one of the things, of course, is to make sure that you can trust your data. That's I think, the most important one. It's good to have alignment with your marketing teams as well, because sometimes people put out campaigns or, well, we did a test for a client, but we did not take into account that it was the Olympics in France and they have a lot of, it was an airliner. It's like, okay, well, maybe that skews the results a bit for France. So sometimes it's really good to take anything into account that might happen from externally. And a proper QA process is really important as well, to make sure, okay, check the different iOS, check, does it work on your webs, does it work on your laptop? If you have a Windows laptop, make sure also somebody checks it with a Mac. Because a lot of times, sometimes people get lazy and then they say, well, it works on my laptop, so probably it worked on the rest. And 9 out of 10 times it does, but that one time that it doesn't, and then you kind of look like an idiot because you're standing there with a client asks for a result and he's like, yeah, I didn't check that. So Make sure your QA is really on point. And make sure, of course, that you have your statistics in order. So make sure you don't have a sample mismatch or anything like that.
It's really good advice. I'm going to ensure that my back buttons really work now because that's completely different on Android and iOS.
Yeah, definitely. Or it could even be that there's been an update during your experiment. I think they had it a couple of years ago that they updated the date fields in, I think, iOS, and that
Yeah,
completely skewed the testing. We had no idea why it was happening until we looked back. It's like, oh, you've got an old version. Oh, you've got a new iOS. Oh, it's different. Yeah, but and those are factors you can't really prepare for, but it can happen. So it's really good to think about that as well.
absolutely. And what aspect to CRO do you think businesses should take more seriously?
I think one of the core aspects of CRO, and I think CRO is, I see it as optimizing a process. Sometimes it can be on a website, but it could be other processes as well. So it could be focused on conversion optimizations, trying to get more sales or more leads. We did it for one of our clients who's in an energy supplier. We focused on the customer service. So we really thought, okay, we get users there, they have questions. What kind of questions do we have? Can we analyze that? Can we put the most used questions on top? In that way, we also were able to reduce the amount of calls that the client, that the customer service had, which is another way of looking at it as well. So in that way, we earned an efficiency. We made the process more efficient, basically. And one of the key aspects of that is that when you learn something, it's really important that you document it. Also, what did you do? Why did you do it? What was the outcome? And what can others learn from it? Because a lot of times people don't do that. I had a presentation a couple of days ago for some clients as well, and I explained, well, what is CRO? What do we do? And she said, well, funny, actually, we do that already. We do A/B test a lot on emails. It's like, okay, cool. What do you do with the learnings? They say, yeah, we don't really do anything with it. So they just start over and over and over. And I think that's the key difference. If you do proper CRO, you document your learnings and you share them. The easiest example that I always give is like when I walk into a house and I knock my head because the door is really low, and I'm Dutch, so I'm tall, so that happens. It would be a really, really shitty move not to tell the guy who's behind me is that the door is low. Not watch your head. But people do that online as well. We learned this great thing, and this open rate is really good because we use this tone of voice. And then there's a content marketer building landing pages, and he has no idea why this tone of voice really works, if it even works. So by sharing that knowledge, I think you can create a learning organization. And I think that's just one of the most important things to do.
I think that's a really good point that you made, and that will actually help others in the organization to think differently. You might open avenues for them to contribute better.
Yeah.
So that's a really good point. Otherwise, you just go around in circles. So, any final thoughts or messages that you'd like to share to our audience before we conclude?
I think one of the key messages is that that CRO isn't just on a website. It isn't a silo. I think you should look CRO more as okay. I think it is more of an empathy thing. You have to think like a end user. So what does an end user see? If he sees an advert and he lands on a landing page, that has to resonate. What are the thoughts that they could have? And if they leave, that's fine. But when they come back, can we recognize them? How can we make sure that we address their needs or their issues? So I think it's really important to try to think like a customer and not just think like one of the silos that we normally see is like, okay, I'm email, I'm website, I'm PPC, I'm paid media, which is great, but the customer doesn't think, oh, now I'm at the PPC unit, now I'm at the website department. No, they just see one company. So I think it's really good to think like that as well, just to have that overarching helicopter view.
Yeah, That's really smart. And I think all of your insights today is more inclined on keeping your customer's voice in mind, paying close attention to what they need as opposed to doing a spaghetti testing or, just listening to the higher managements and moving on with life. So that's really cool. So before we conclude, Mark, I have a surprise round for you, which is a rapid fire round.
Yeah, great.
So the first one is, if you were starting your career in CRO today, what is the one thing that you would do differently?
I think I would start at a large agency. So, because when you're a junior, it's really good to get the experience from other CRO specialists. I started at a small company, so I had to learn everything myself. But you can really make a big jump if you work at an agency.
Okay. Is there a newsletter that every CRO must follow?
Yeah, I think that's the CXL or now the Spiro newsletter because they just have great insights.
Yes, I agree. I stalk them. uh, three books that you would recommend to our listeners.
Ooh, three books. Of course, Hack and Grow from Sean Ellis, because I think it's really good to look at a bigger perspective, not only CRO. The other one is Friction. Can't remember the author's name, but it's all about reducing friction. So it's very much CRO based. So it's how can we make stuff easier? Not only on the website, but also your own process. Because do we need to document everything, or do we just need to document the things that are really important that people read? And let me think it. I only know two actually. That's the thing. I read books, but I also tend to forget the
So it happens
titles.
all the time. What's your go-to travel destination in Europe?
Ooh, I love the mountains, so it would be the French Alps. If it's
Oh,
possible, I would ski all year.
oh my gosh, I'm a mountain person as well. Every time I keep insisting my husband takes me to the Himalayas, like I just want to be there. If you were not a CRO specialist, what other profession would you have chosen?
Well, funny enough, I studied banking, so yeah, so that's why the reason why I ended up in CRO is because I worked at a small company. They needed a marketeer, and I said, well, fine, I'll do that. And if you combine marketing with finance, then CRO is more. It's quite logical because I always try to figure out, okay, how much money do we make from this? Yeah, so probably I would work at the bank.
So, one thing that you believe that AI will replace in the next 3 years?
Ooh, I think AI is really good at the repetitive tasks. So I think there are a lot of administration, a lot of building slide decks. I think it could really help with that. Just making sure, check it always, but make sure that all the part of the automation that AI can help you with, also analyzing big chunks of data. It's a tool, so you need to make sure that you use it properly. But I think that's the biggest win for the upcoming years.
And what is one CRO metric that you wish people would stop obsessing over?
Ooh, yeah. I would at some point I would say, and it's strange, but also not don't only focus on the conversion rate, but just really think about, okay, why is there? It's mainly just think about why this conversion rate is there. Just people say, well, it's better, so it should work. I think just look beyond the conversion rate. I think that's the most important.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I have such a hard time telling my clients this. Uh,
Yeah.
a dream or a goal you want to achieve in the next 3 years?
Ooh, let's see. From a CRO perspective, I think it's making sure that conversion optimization is seen beyond the website and as a part of optimizing the full customer journey.
really cool. I wish a lot of visitors and a lot of clients adapt that as well.
Yeah, that would be nice, but there's still some work to do there.
Yes. Well, that was the end of our rapid fire as well, and this was a fun session. Thank you so
Definitely.
much for your time, and I hope we get to see you soon.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for having me.